Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at creating your own bass tones in Reaper completely for free. So before we get into it, let's listen to the first track that we're going through right here. Now this one is finished, so I have bass here, drums here, a left guitar, and a right guitar all together. So let's take a listen to that, and then let's take a listen to the riff afterwards that only has drums and no bass guitar yet, and we'll be doing that today. I'll be showing you guys how to create a bass guitar tone from scratch completely for free. That includes the bass instrument, okay? You don't need an actual bass guitar for this. We'll be using MIDI this time. Now I'll be talking about how you can route a bass guitar directly into it, or even use a normal guitar with a pitch changer in order to get your bass input. So that's 3 different options for everybody, and they're all free. So let's take a dive into this. Alright, I think that's enough for now. I apologize for switching the recording options as I was going through there. I noticed that you couldn't see these pop-up windows, so I had to change that, because that's the entire purpose of this video. Okay, so now that you guys heard what the full mix sounds like, and without the bass in this one part that I haven't done, let's go ahead and solo the bass and the drums to give you guys an idea of what it sounds like isolated. So as you can hear, it's very aggressive. So let's start out with the first effects. So going right in from the MIDI input, we have the Ample Bass P Lite 2. Now this is a free plugin. I'll put everything in the description, and let's hear how this sounds by itself. So overall, it sounds fantastic in my opinion. I have some like aggression things going on here. You guys can fool around with that yourselves. I kind of just threw this together. It's nothing special. The way that the bass plugin comes is fantastic. All right, now let's sorry about that. Let's take a look at the next part of the plugin, of the plugin chain. We have the TSE 808. Now this is a free plugin by TSE Audio. They also make the bass overdrive, which we'll be using for the distortion. Let's see what this sounds like, with and without. So right off the bat, it's boosting the signal overall, it's dialing down the low end a little bit, and it's bringing out some more highs. And we can adjust those highs with the tone knob. This is traditionally used as a guitar pedal, but I found out that it sounds great going into the BOD. So now let's take a look at that. So now you can stop here. I would not recommend it because to me, it's just going to get lost in the mix. It sounds a bit muddy, sounds just sloppy overall. So now that's what the next plugins are for. We have our bass plugins, no pun intended, going straight from the MIDI bass into the boost, into the drive pedal itself. Now we're going to clean that signal up with these next three plugins. First, I have the Rex Comp. This is one of the plugins that comes with Reaper, so it's completely free. If you don't have it, I'm sure that you can get it somehow online, or just use your own banded compressor. So let's see what we have here. As you can see, we're dialing down the bass a little bit with the number 4. We're compressing pretty much everything, and these are all set to auto makeup gain. So it's bringing it down and then boosting up the lower amplitude frequencies. We're being quite aggressive with the high part because we really want that to pop out, okay? Also, this band here, around 6K, this is really boosted, okay? Because between the 1K and 6K zone is where you want your bass to sit. Those accentuations and stuff, you want those to pop out if you want your aggressive bass to be in the mix. If you want it to just be there to fill out the sound, then this is where your bass is going to sit, okay? 7 to 100 hertz, okay? That's where you want your bass to sit. But if you're going for this more modern periphery metal tone, you want your bass to sit in that area. See how much that stands out? Let's throw it in with the guitars. Listen how much that bass is affecting that guitar tone. So we want it to get popped out at that 1.5 to 6K hertz area. And to do that, first we use the compressor. Now we're going to use some EQ, okay? Now this is a pretty aggressive EQ chain. I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger so you guys can see it better. All right, perfect. So now around this 1.3K area, we have a huge spike, okay? Let's solo out the bass. This is 1.5 kilohertz is what I call the juice area, okay? This is where your bass is going to get that juicy tone. You hear without it, it's very dry and scooped. We add it back in, and it's just juicy. That's the word I would use to describe it. Next, we have a boost around 50 to 100 hertz. And that's just to fill it up, even out that area, because we're going to be compressing that later on, so don't worry about it being too boomy right now. Next, we have a boost around 250 hertz. And this is what I call the body zone for the bass. This is what gives it its presence in that low end part of the mix. You want this area to be pretty high. This is a big spike, but it's worth it to get it filling out everything. Let's listen to it with the drums. So without it, it's very, very just empty. Let's give it the boost. And with it, it just brings it to life in the mix. So now let's talk about what's going on up here with the 4 kilohertz area. we have a large boost again, another 5 decibels. Now this is the area that's going to make it prominent in our mix, okay? We got the juice, we have the body, and we have just the bass area that fills out the bottom end of the mix. Now we want to focus on being able to hear the individual notes and the articulation in it. So without it, it's a great bass tone already, okay? But to give it that extra life, we're just going to boost it by between 3 and 5 decibels to your taste. Now you can mess around with moving this back and forth. It is your tone. Now I was noticing I would get an annoying frequency in this area where the clipping was taking place most prominently on the bass, and I didn't want to boost that, so I went ahead and moved this a little bit more to the right to get more of the higher frequencies. Right there. Hear that buzzing? When we move it over here, it's a little bit more moved up and it kind of gets lost in the mix. So I personally just prefer that. So now let's take a look at the last compressor. This is what's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Let's listen to it without and with. So now the first part, we have a 16 ratio compressor on the 1 to about, looks like 275 hertz area. Now let's just go ahead and mess around with that. So now this is to control that extra bass that we added in on the EQ plugin, okay? And you see it's not doing that much. Let's full screen this here. It's probably only bringing it down by 1 to 2 decibels. But that's enough to keep it tight, okay? You want the tight bass still, since this is a very modern sound. So now this one here, we don't, okay, an important thing, we don't have auto makeup gain. If we did that, listen. It kind of starts acting weird. It's going to get a little bit boomy again, okay? To keep it clean, the purpose of this is to not use any makeup gain, okay? That's also the purpose of this second band. We're stretching from 275 from the top part of the bass cutoff to about 10 kilohertz, okay? This is a huge band, but it's necessary. We're going for a very high ratio here. Keep your bass very compressed for the tight sound and aggressiveness. Now this is going to cut down on all those annoying frequencies, and once again, we're cutting off the auto makeup gain. So let's move this around and see what happens. I figured out that minus 18 decibels is where I like to sit with this one. So now we're going up into the top end, okay? Now we do have auto makeup gain on this. So this is going to lower the highest amplitude frequencies and raise up the lowest amplitude frequencies to give us a more equal area. This is the fizz area of the spectrum. So let's start with it off and then engage it. A good bass tone, but let's get more articulation by engaging it. As you can tell, all those tiny nuances to the tone really start to pop out. And just personally, I really like that. So you can mess with this, you can change anything you want, but that's what I have for that, okay? Now this is the secret to this bass tone, okay? This is the Ori River Reverb plugin, and this is a completely free plugin again. You can use any reverb plugin that you have. I happen to really like this because it gives so much options here. Let's listen to it without it first. with it. It adds this huge presence to the bass, and this is making all the difference in the mix. And this is kind of acting as our cabinet almost. It's this room mic'd sound that just adds an enormous amount of volume to our bass tone. So let's get into the settings here. I started off with the default patch, and I lowered the decay time down to about 0.4. Let's listen to it now. Then I took the gain section. So now this is EQ on the reverb only. This doesn't affect the normal EQ that we messed with earlier, just the reverb soloed. So I boosted the low all the way. Now the low shelf is at 255 hertz. The peak shelf is at 2.4 hertz, 2.4 kilohertz. And the high cutoff is about 5.2 kilohertz, okay? So now the peak is just going up a little bit. Do that to taste. Those are your mids. Now the highs, I have boosted up all the way. And let's listen to that pan right and left. So that's keeping those articulations in there, okay? So now with the mix, that's your wet part, okay? The wet is how much of the reverb is going to be in the mix. We're sitting at about 50%, okay? As you go up in decay, you want to bring this down. But for this room sound, it's important to have this really short 0.4 second delay. Because if we do this, watch. We aren't trying to use this as a reverb. We're just trying to use it for body. All right, that sounds great. Let's listen to it in the mix again. Once with all the plugins turned off and once with all of them turned on. So just the bass, and I might adjust the levels here. We're going to listen to how that sounds by itself in the mix. So that's the bass without any plugins. And now let's mess around with it with the plugins. Let's turn each and every one on, including the last reverb. And let's listen to it without the bass at all. Alright guys, thank you for watching. So next time, as I said, we're going to add in the bass part for this part. And I'm going to make that into a separate video just for the sake that it's going to take a while. And this video is all about just the bass effects. We'll get into bass writing later, but I thought it was important to create a video showing completely for free how you can get this kind of Periphery style bass sound that they're so famous for. I've seen a lot of videos on it, and they're always using these expensive plugins and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe that that's necessary. As you guys saw, I mean, it speaks for itself. My favorite part is this part in the chorus here. That just really shows just how heavy and aggressive but still tight and articulate this bass sound is. I'm going to put up, if you have all these plugins, I'm going to show that I have it as an effects chain. Take a look at this. Go into effects, add effects chain, and I have the bass shared right here, okay? I'm going to put that effects chain in the description of the video so that you guys can download my exact settings so that it's 100% exact. The only thing that will change the sound are your headphones, because we're going all digital here. So, if you have each and every one of these plugins, the Ample Bass P Lite 2, TSE 808, and the BOD, and then you have the Reaper plugins and the Ori River, then once you load it in, boom, just like that, you'll have the perfect bass tone. You might want to change a couple things EQ-wise for it to sit better in your mix, but you're going to have a great foundation. If you don't have all these plugins, get the patch anyways. Get the effects chain anyways, because the ones that you don't have, you can just throw in later, and you'll already have my settings for the BOD and the TSE and that kind of stuff. I highly recommend the Reaper plugins. I mean, the interface isn't beautiful like Pro Tools plugins are, but they definitely get the job done, especially when we're talking about the banded compressor. This is super important. We can add as many bands as we want. It's an incredibly powerful tool that I, at this point, just can't live without when I'm mixing. So, say you wanted to use your guitar instead. Now, let's talk about that real quick before I hop off here. So right now, of course, we're using the MIDI input, okay? We just went with item, insert, and added a new MIDI item. That's all we did, and then we just used the MIDI input. If you wanted to use a real guitar, like a normal guitar, not a bass guitar, you would go in Add Effects, and then you would go into Pitch Proof. This is a free plugin as well. And this, you can go pretty much all wet, and then minus 12, so this is down an octave, and then boom, your guitar is pitch shifted down an octave. And you'll put that in the very front, and your input will come from a guitar, just like the guitar tracks do, right here. Now, if you wanted to use a bass, you'd do the same exact thing, just without the Pitch Proof plugin. Super simple stuff. And of course, you would turn off the Ample Bass plugin as well. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the MIDI writing video if you're interested in how to write the MIDI tracks for the bass here. Let's open one up. It's not wanting to open. So we'll just do that in the next video. It's probably something with the recording software here, opening up a new window. There it is again, guys. I hope you enjoy. See you guys next time.